So, you think your life is too boring to tell great stories. But here's the thing, the best storytellers don't have more exciting lives than you. They just know how to frame their experiences in a way that makes people care. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to find great stories from seemingly mundane, everyday moments and transform them into content that captivates, grows your audience, and your brand. If you're watching this, I'm going to take a wild guess and assume you're a personal brand. You own your business and you're the face of it. And being a personal brand sometimes is quite easy to fall into the trap of telling stories that are a bit too self-centered. Let me explain. So when we share personal experiences, it's natural to focus on our own journey, our own wins, our own struggles. But if we're not careful, this can turn into a bit of a me talk, where the audience listens but doesn't really feel involved. But that doesn't mean that you should avoid personal stories altogether. In fact, personal stories are essential. They make you relatable, they build trust, and they create emotional connections with your audience. So let me show you how to actually put this concept into practice. It's all about framing your story so that your audience can picture themselves in the journey. Here's the key. When sharing a story about your breakthrough or success, build an immediate bridge connecting your experience to your audience's potential. And so you're not just telling your audience what happened to you, you're actually showing them what's possible for them. And this is important because when you let your audience see themselves in the transformation you're talking about, they will feel like they have the potential to get where they want to be. And then they will be more likely to listen to your story. So the best way to do this in practice is by creating an empathetic bridge in your story. And this doesn't have to be complicated. It's literally just a few words that directly connect your experience to your audience's situation. And this could be words as simple as I get why. So you could say something like, I know you're probably thinking my life feels boring. I get why. There's nothing inherently interesting about walking your dog in the morning or doing the dishes, but it's precisely in these routines where the most relatable stories hide. Another thing you can say is, if I can, so can you. So for example, 1 year ago I was recording my podcast sitting in the car in my garage because I didn't have any budget for equipment, and that's where the best sound was. All I needed was my ideas and my voice. So trust me, if I did it despite the circumstances, so can you. And finally, you can also use a sentence such as, why am I telling you this story, to help take a story that feels a bit too personal and me and reframe it into a story that was actually meant to be for your audience in the first place. So here's an example. Last week, I spilled coffee all over my laptop right before a client call. Why am I telling you this story? It's because I believe that blah blah, and then you continue with your tips and the message that you want to share. Okay, so now that you understand how to use empathy to frame your stories and make your audience the hero of your story, let's explore the different type of stories you can find in your everyday life. Personal stories are great because they are yours. No one else has lived them. So let me give you 2 examples of personal stories you can tell. The first one is probably the most logical one, and it consists of thinking about your past stories and experiences. Did something happen to you in the past that really changed you, that marked a pivotal moment in your life? For example, one of the stories I always tell is the one about my viral deodorant TikTok video that made my TikTok following grow to over 250,000 followers in just a few weeks. And so here's how you can find stories to tell from your past experiences. Sit down and write your life story, focusing on those pivotal moments that have shaped who you are and the business you've built. Let your writing flow freely to bring out both your story and your emotions naturally. Don't hold back, just write what comes to mind. And so by letting your thoughts flow without filtering them too much, you'll naturally inject authenticity in your story, and that will make it more powerful and relatable. And by the way, if you're interested in this topic, I have a whole video dedicated to it, and I will link it down below. The next type of story you can share comes from your present. So things happening right now or experiences you're currently going through. And by present, of course, I don't mean the exact moment something is happening. I just mean recent events. So this could be something that happened to you today or within the past month. And even here, allow yourself to be vulnerable, because Vulnerable stories are powerful for building your brand and showing the real you. They create trust and connection precisely because they're imperfect and they might not even have a resolution yet. And you know what? That's okay. Not every story needs a perfect ending right away. In fact, an unresolved story creates an open loop that keeps your audience hooked as you share, update, and continue the story later. Let me give you an example by telling you an actual story so you can see this done in action. So I recently joined Blue Sky. If you're not familiar, it's a new social media platform similar to X. And as someone who's always been focused on just YouTube and email, this was a big step for me. But what really intrigued me about the platform was the fact that the platform has a 300 character limit for posts. And so I wrote this email to my audience where I talk about how I was running this experiment because I wanted to try a thread-based short platform to get me outside of my comfort zone and post thoughts as they came to me. And the key lesson was to get out of your comfort zone as a creator. But there's actually no resolution to this story. The experiment is still going on and I will update my audience about it. And so even a simple unfolding story like this plays a very important role in building anticipation and keeping your audience invested in your journey. Now, as a personal brand, do you always need to rely on personal stories? Absolutely not. So the point is to source stories from your daily life, even if they don't directly relate to your own journey. And this is why the next type of story you can share with your audience is a case study story. So this could be a powerful lesson you drew from a movie you watched or a book you read, or it could be an observation of someone else's actions that sparked reflection and changed your perspective. Or it could be even a client's transformation and how you helped them achieve the transformation. The point is that every story you tell, whether from your own experience or someone else's journey, should reflect your unique perspective on the topic. And thanks to that, all of the stories you tell become vessels to deliver your message to your audience. So now that we've explored different types of stories you can source from your everyday life, let's dive into how you can actually capture and organize these stories effectively. The truth is, our best ideas often come at random moments. While we're showering, we're walking, we're doing mundane tasks, and if we don't capture these ideas immediately, they'll likely slip away forever. Our brains aren't designed to hold on to fleeting thoughts for very long. And so the best capturing method is the most frictionless. My current go-to method is WhatsApp, although I've been testing Otter as well. But basically, here's the gist of it. What you need is a temporary inbox you know you'll take action on. And the best way for me is to have an actual task on my calendar that once a week reminds me to check the stories and content ideas I've recorded so I can actually process them and add them to my content. Is this the most effective method? Probably not. But is it the most frictionless to capture stories and ideas while I'm on the go? For sure. And by the way, if you use another method which you think is more efficient and even more frictionless, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments down below. Now, most of these ideas that I capture, I don't really collect them into a database. I try to implement them straight away. And the reason is that if I do add them to a database, they tend to get buried and forgotten when the database becomes overcrowded. However, there are some types of stories I definitely recommend storing into a database from the get-go. And I call these cornerstone stories. And these are pivotal stories you're going to tell over and over again because they played such a big pivotal role at shaping your journey. Think of them as your aha moments that got you where you are today in your business. So for example, in my case, that might be the TikTok deodorant story I told you earlier in the video. And the advantage of storing cornerstone stories in a database is that you can easily find them whenever you want to tell them again without having to rewrite them from scratch every single time. Remember, not every story from your life needs to become content. The key is to be selective and choose stories that align with your brand's narrative and resonate with your audience. Whether you're teaching through metaphors, sharing personal development insights, or delivering practical tips, make sure your stories serve a clear purpose for your viewers. And something else I want you to take away from this video that ties back to the beginning of it is your life isn't boring. You just need to be intentional about which stories you want to tell. And if you want to learn more about how to turn stories or any other piece of content into a powerful message that resonates with your audience, watch my next video. If available, you will find it here.